Do you want to do cool stuff like this, 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 and even this on just your fingertips? Then this is the only guide that you will ever need. But you've got to pay attention, damn it. First things first, we've got to properly warm up our fingers because breaking your thumb is not a step in this guide. First move we have is some simple stretches to get blood flow to the joints. You can do this with your other hand, with all of your fingers, with individual fingers, or even on the floor. Once our joints and skin around our fingers is nice and stretched, we're going to move on to some air grips where we're not trying to squeeze the air, we are trying to tense these small muscles and create tension around our knuckles and our fingers. This can help increase blood flow to our joints and to help better prepare them for some heavier pressure later on. Next, we've got what are called floor pulses, where we're not really doing anything too difficult with our hands, where we're just trying to introduce our hands and fingers to the pressure of our body weight. Once our fingers are nice and warmed up to be able to hold our body weight and don't feel like they're going to instantly snap, we can finish our warm-up with the easiest variation of finger plank that we can do for about 20-25 seconds. And now that our fingers are nice and warmed up, hopefully I won't be getting any finger related papers in the mail. And that also means we can move on to the first exercise. For our first exercise, we have the fingertip plank. Getting into a standard plank position onto our fingertips. We want to place equal pressure on all of our fingers, not too much on the thumbs and not too much onto our forward four fingers. Make sure to keep proper scapular protraction during the entire hold to form healthy habits. The fingertip plank is more of a endurance-based exercise to create insane endurance in your fingers, so you can hold your body weight on your fingers for longer. But if the regular plank is too hard for you, you can use the knee plank for a regression. And for any of you wondering the question, will floor fingertip training translate to fingertip hangs on the bar? And to answer your question, I have no idea. However, I've never trained fingertip hangs on a bar before, and I can still proficiently do pull-ups with 2 fingers, even though I've only ever conditioned my fingers on the floor. Moving on, for our second exercise, we have the bent arm push-up hold. This is more or less another plank variation, but who doesn't like variety? Sue me. However, this variation is a lot harder than the previous mentioned plank because not only are you using other muscles to actually push against the ground rather than locking out your arms, but your center of mass is also closer to your hands, making you actually push the ground with more force on your fingers. If you don't believe me, just try it yourself. Getting in your standard bent arm push-up position, we want to, of course, keep our core activated, not like this, but like this. And of course, keeping equal pressure on all 5 of our fingers while actively pushing the ground with our fingers to keep our body above the ground. If this is too hard for you, feel free to switch to an easier variation. But at least we're not hitting ourselves with metal bars. And for our final movement, before we move on to everything you need to know before starting this fingertip conditioning, we have the fingertip push-up. Getting into our standard push-up position on our fingertips, this is more of a dynamic movement than a static movement that the fingertip plank and the bent arm plank was, meaning there's going to be pressure changes on your fingers, transitioning from the top to the bottom position, and you are going to be actively pushing the ground with your fingers at all times. Despite this being a push-up variation, we are not here for a chest workout. So we are going to limit our reps to less than 5 per set. However, if fingertip push-ups are too easy and you end up finding yourself doing more than 10, 15 reps per set, try removing a finger one by one. This will place more pressure on the leftover fingers, making it more difficult. You can do this for the fingertip push-up and every other exercise. You just remove a finger one by one. I'm not doing that. And just as a small bonus exercise, we have thumb leans because, fun fact, the thumb is actually the strongest finger in the entire hand, aside from the ring and middle fingers. Not only is it one of the strongest fingers in the hand, but it's also one of the most important when it comes to fingertip calisthenics skills. So at the end of your session, simply placing more weight on your thumbs to isolate them for that extra volume can truly help you out. And now that you have the entire catalog of movements that I used, we can go over everything you need to know before training for these skills and this finger strength. First things first, your sets should never go to true failure. Your fingers don't have a lot of muscle in them. You're not training for hypertrophy, you are conditioning them. If you train to failure, you've probably broken something. And on top of that, the end of your session, your conditioning session, should leave your fingers aching, not hurting. If your fingers physically hurt to bend, then you probably pushed yourself way too far. Other than that, in order to gain the most out of your finger conditioning, you should try training around 2 times per week, probably at the end of your regular workout session. However, I got away with training just once per week. Sometimes. And while you are making progress and gaining strength in your fingers, once a session feels significantly easier than it was last week, meaning your fingers ache less and you are struggling less during every set, only add volume to one exercise at a time. If you add volume to multiple exercises, it's going to add up way too fast and you're going to end up overtraining. Because in the end, we're focusing on volume per session rather than volume per exercise. I should have panned through several example routines on screen, and I will put them all down into the description below, as well as all of these principles that I have gone over. And with that, I hope this video could help you become a better bodyweight beast. I'm gonna go put my fingers in some ice now. Holy crap, that asphalt is unforgiving.